Really?
I don't.
She's not on any committees. So
A lot of time.
a lot of time.
I really don't know what to do with that.
Oh, you,
All right, the stream is live, just so you guys know. And then I'm going to connect to the Facebook to MCN6, and then we'll be ready to go.
Cool.
We're live on the YouTube?
Yeah, so
Indeed.
be quiet.
You be quiet.
All right, I'm posting it.
Oh, me too.
Or, you know.
As far as you know.
It's the phrase of the day.
Wag thanked me for my positive review.
oh,
Positive. It's amazing.
It's the best service out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, connecting to the Facebook. Hey everybody, we'll be starting the show in just a minute here. As always, we love it when you guys interact. If you comment below the video, we'll put your comments on screen. And if it wouldn't kill you, give it a share. We deserve it. I really feel strongly about that. There you go, guys. I gave my hard sell.
You really did.
Mhm.
You know, Minnesotans are not used to that kind of...
It's about putting emotion into it, you know?
I felt it.
I got something at stake. All right. Here we go. So the show is ready to go. If you guys are good, I'm good. And actually, Allison, can I get a quick test from you?
Test.
That was too quick. Can you give like 1 second?
Testing.
It's
I
your
think that was
birthday.
perfect.
It's my birthday.
We're going to sing.
Oh, we'll see.
I don't know if it...
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wrong About Everything podcast. I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader Amy Koch.
And I am Allison, birthday girl Nessie.
And I am just a curling coach, Phil Drobnik.
And we are
Wrong About Everything. You're back, Phil.
Phil's back. Coach Phil's back.
For true fans of the podcast, when were you last on? We were here. We were in this studio.
It's been a little while.
A couple years, probably.
Couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, remind everybody about who you are and what you do, since you are interesting, unlike the rest of us.
It's true.
I am the head national coach for USA Curling, and I coach our Olympic team. We're getting ready for Italy.
Yeah.
USA! USA!
Yeah, we just had our Olympic trials, so yeah, it's exciting times.
How did that go?
It went well. We had great event, and we're preparing for our World Championships. I leave for South Korea in 10 days.
That is so cool.
It's pretty
Go
cool.
get him, USA.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Go get them.
And as we were told, it is legitimately Allison Nessie's birthday.
Yeah.
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 Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thanks, everybody.
I think this is public domain, but happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Allison Nessie.
Happy birthday to you and many more.
Oh, so many more.
So many
Thank
more.
you.
At least a couple. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios here in Northeast Minneapolis. We have our producer, Gabe Noah, who is making sure that you can actually hear us and see us. And if you have any podcast needs, you should contact Gabe. and MBC Studios. They'd be more than happy to talk to you about putting on a high-quality production such as this one. He'd be very happy to talk to you. Please also go to our website, www.wrongaboutEverything-podcast.com. And hopefully you're watching us on YouTube. We're really pushing the YouTube channel, so we would absolutely love it if you would give us a watch there, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Put down a couple of comments, and we would love that very much.
Gabe feels very strongly about it.
He feels very strongly about it. He puts a lot of time into clips, which the rest of us disrespect. By not
sharing
we
them
don't
more.
share them nearly enough, and I'm sure that he is very upset by that. But you can find them all on our YouTube page. And I had a state representative ask me for the Mike Oxbrown clip,
and there it was.
Clip, which I was able to find and send to him. So we would love for you to do that. But we would also
What
love
a
for you.
birthday gift.
But we would also like to thank our good friends at Bradshaw and Bryant. Their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Please contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com.
Nice.
Oh.
No snitches.
No snitches, though. Mike Bryant is not interested in defending you if you are a snitch. Well, every time I kind of think I know what we're going to talk about.
What's new?
Every time I think I know what we're going to talk about on the podcast, usually something like that day or shortly before, or during,
the worst.
or during.
During.
Yeah.
Boy, this year has been a lot of breaking news in the middle of the podcast.
So we have talked in the last couple of episodes about, Senator Tina Smith not running again, which Democrats are in, which Republicans are in. Is Walz going to challenge for that open seat? And does that mean then he's going to compete against his own lieutenant governor? But it appears as though that is not what's going to happen.
Nope.
Because I think that was just, was it yesterday or this morning?
It was this morning.
All these days run together. But Governor Walz indicated that he loves being governor, might run for governor again. He's not going to run for Senate. But he's also not going to endorse anybody for Senate, which is I'm not breaking any news here.
I wish Javier was here.
There's obviously a rift. If you say there's not, then either you're lying or you're not paying attention. There's a rift, but it's super interesting. We don't know everyone who's in it's an open seat for Tina Smith, so it's perfectly acceptable for Peggy. Kind of is the biggest name. Peggy Flanagan, Lieutenant Governor, is probably the biggest name that came out, and she came out really early, which I do think kind of kept the governor where he is, or at least contributed tremendously to him staying where he is. But we're still hearing
Melissa Franzen.
She resigned from her post at the university this weekend.
That was a big move, right? So
move.
former U.S. or former state senator. And currently at the U.
Melissa Lopez Franzen,
as of the U,
said that she's going to explore a run. She left her job at the University of Minnesota, so that is a pretty clear indication that she is all the way in, or going to be very soon. You're still hearing Angie Craig, though we don't know for what. That's Congresswoman Angie Craig. We don't know if she's staying where she is as 2nd Congressional District Congresswoman, or is she going to run for run for Senate, or run for governor. And I know that she is very popular. She took a 50-50 seat in CD2 and turned it into a plus 14 Dem seat, which I understand that the DNC or the DCCC, DCCC, kind of said, "What are you doing? We want you to stay right where you are." But you know what? I've been doing a lot of talking. Let's see. What are you guys hearing about?
On the Democrats.
Are you guys hearing names in, names out?
Steve Simon? No?
I haven't heard of anything, confirming, formal enough. I mean, obviously, Steve Simon is interested in higher office. I think he's voiced that. Attorney General Ellison, I think, is very interested in either governor or U.S. Senate at some point. but these seats don't open up very often. But having, as you said, Brian, Peggy announce right out of the gate, I think creates an interesting Minnesota dynamic for what are very rare opportunities.
What about Congresswoman Omar?
That is not something I have heard.
No,
But-
there's been some talk about her being interested, but I just don't envision her.
I can't.
Don't envision her
I don't
running.
see that happening, but I just don't know how much behind the scenes back and forth there are amongst the DFL friends.
I think, for me today was disappointing just because I feel like having Governor Walz run for the Senate and having a moderate jump into the Senate race would have been a great thing. But, he's not. He's going to run for governor again, or likely going to run for
Likely,
governor.
right? He wasn't 1,000% that, but that he's I mean, I think he put his marker down, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's how I took that statement.
I also heard maybe Melissa Franson would be a potential candidate as a running mate for him.
No.
I don't know if that would fit as well, because
would.
that'll obviously open
I mean,
up.
there is an opening,
there
right? Like
There's an opening.
Absolutely.
that's the kind of thing when these big seats come open like this, which they don't very often. They start a cascade, right? There's always like openings, and there was like, well, is Walz going to go to the Senate, and then who goes to governor, and then does that open up a congressional seat? And
Because I live down in CD2, which is Angie Craig's area, and I've already been hearing from Democrats in that area who say that if Craig runs for something else, that they would be running for CD2, and that would be, I've heard, a very liberal one and a moderate one, so that would be interesting. And then I think if Craig was out of CD2, I think that also opens up the door for kind of a higher quality Republican to run. Not that, I mean, Joe Tayrab ran last time, and Amy's friends with him, I'm friends with him. This isn't an indictment on him, but somebody like my senator, Senator Duckworth, I think Zach Duckworth, I think that would be super interesting. But that no one, someone like that isn't going to leave their Senate seat, their Minnesota Senate seat or a House seat or something like that to run against Angie Craig. That's probably not.
No,
bigger
it's not
Christian.
fun to give up your election certificate for
a Hail Mary.
yeah.
Yeah, and also Duckworth was pretty clear. He tweeted about he doesn't really want to go to D.C. He's got a very young family,
Young kids.
But he did comment that the governor's mansion has enough for four. Expert level troll.
Yeah, he was
Good job.
he was
Zach.
just messing with us.
On the Republican side, no one has officially jumped in. There's been Senator Julie Coleman said she's looking at it. Representative Kristen Robbins. I have heard, and I'm not saying we're through, but that Tafoya is in and is likely to announce
That's
shortly.
former
see if-
NFL sideline reporter Michelle
we
Tafoya.
shall see if we are really got the scuttlebutt or not.
And fun fact, Michelle Tafoya's husband was a friend of mine in high school. Actually,
That's not as
Who
fun. That's not fun.
Actually,
Didn't go to Robbinsdale Armstrong
he
High
went to
School.
Armstrong, but we also went to junior high. And when I moved here, when I moved to Minnesota, I was in 5th grade. Moved here, I was in this weird 5th, 6th grade combo class, and her husband Mark Vandersall was the guy who was assigned to show me around the school, and he was a very nice guy, always all the way up. He played baseball with me, and actually went on and played baseball at the U of M, and his dad was a Gopher football coach, way back in the Wayback Machine. So
we'll see about that, and I suspect there'll be some others because again, open seat like that in a statewide race. Also today, who said that he was exploring for governor? David
there was
Hand?
a long list, I
David
think,
Hand,
of folks on your side.
former state party chair, former state senator.
Come on.
Google him.
Yeah.
Other than with one tremendously big exception, I've never actually had any trouble with David Hand. But there's with one exception.
I've only had trouble.
It's the most exception.
Only.
It's the exception that matters.
Yeah. So and we're hearing obviously Royce Lewis, not Royce Lewis.
White.
He plays third base for the Twins. Royce White is in.
I bet he is.
He probably wants to run for both.
Like
he probably wants to run for governor and
yeah, why not? Why not?
He's so fantastic.
Well, I almost said something I shouldn't say. No, that would So he is definitely in, and should definitely be discarded.
I think he's a great candidate for you guys.
I think he.
Well, he did such a great job this last time, right? When he ran against Amy Klobuchar, he raised so much money.
Yeah.
He got so many votes. He worked so hard.
Yeah. No, he would make me proud. Make me proud. But some of the other names on the Republican list, I actually would be pretty excited about. They have zero name ID, so that would be the biggest mark against them. But there are several of the names I'm hearing would be people that far exceed some of the other statewide candidates that we've had.
Yeah, Republicans in Minnesota were just not going to have it, right? Because other than like a Tom Emmer or Pete Stauber on the congressional level, and they've both said they're not running. We've not had a statewide candidate win in 20 years since Governor Pawlenty. And so we just don't naturally have any sort of state level stars. No. And that is a problem, folks. We've got to start having a farm team. We've got to start promoting people. And we've got to start winning these statewide races, which means we've got to have good candidates, real candidates.
You guys got to endorse someone who could
serious
win.
About who can win.
Yeah.
I'd prefer you not, but...
Right.
Is Karen Housley, she's
still toying with it. Yep. So and she ran against for the special in a terrible year, 2018, but she raised over $5 million.
She seemed popular.
And, absolutely. It was tough, really tough year, and it was a special, but raised over $5 million in a matter of a few months. So that ain't nothing.
That ain't nothing.
That ain't seed corn.
Moving on, just staying with a little bit of Minnesota news. So, President Trump is starting to give Minnesota some attention.
Oh, shocking! Just is the one that got away.
Yep. So
Forever.
President Trump has kind of highlighted some Minnesota politicians. Mayor Melvin Carter, Attorney General Ellison, and certainly you can the thought of sanctuary cities and a sanctuary state, that's something that seems to me to be pretty inappropriate. But the president, I'm saying everything wrong, says he is going to remove illegal immigrant killers and drug dealers from our streets and send them back where they belong. He says that Attorney General Keith Ellison and other officials in sanctuary cities are sick politicians who want killers, rapists roaming our streets. And
well, he pointed out in
maybe went a little farther.
The conflation is
yeah.
So the problem is the ICE arrested a Sudanese national convicted of rape of a victim under 13, and a Mexican national convicted of criminal sexual conduct against a victim under 14 in St. Paul.
Yeah.
And so that, this was a large piece of the election and a lot of what Minnesotans and Americans are ticked off
and
about.
I think this is where the Democrats are.
This is not about immigration.
Yeah, this is where the Democrats are kind of fumbling, because they have people when it comes to having compassion and empathy and all of that. And so, like on the trans issues with sports and all of that, they have people to a point. And then I think that they indulge their progressive wing too far. And I think that's the same thing on immigration, is that people understand that there are people here seeking a better life and they want the best for those people, but they also don't want to defend people who are here, killing and raping,
committing crimes,
doing
criminal activities like these awful people, and that is ICE's job.
Yeah.
What a sanctuary city is a local unit of government saying we're not going to, do the work of federal immigration enforcement because that is not our jurisdiction. And we're not gonna team up with you either. Like that is what it is. But they are two separate things.
Why
but they
wouldn't
often
you
get
team up to get rid of these guys? You should team up.
Criminals, 100%. If there is a criminal, if you have as a local law enforcement agency. There's a criminal and they
St. Paul
are
PD should be like,
undocumented.
over here, over here, right here,
No, that
over
makes
here.
complete sense to me. But like participating in raids of just people, like those are two very different things that often get conflated together. I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody who is committing crimes and is here illegally, and then looping in ICE and federal immigration enforcement.
And on the show,
Sorry.
I back when sanctuary cities and all that were a little bit more of a present topic. I believe with limited state resources, the state resources shouldn't be going to do federal work.
No.
I get that.
Particularly local, very limited local.
And but I also think that people don't trust the motives of President Trump. And I think they also don't believe the motives of the Democrats who are refusing to comply. I think that's where the people are in the middle saying, why isn't the easy answer we're all gonna work together to get rid of criminals? Not everybody, but the criminals. And that seems to be, a foreign concept to the elected leaders.
I do think that some of the stuff that President Trump says, as we know, he just spouts things off, and he tries to engage people, and he gets that to work. And I think in some of these cases, it's better for Democrats just to ignore him, and not engage in some of these battles, whether it comes within the media or whatever it is, and just focus on the things that's going to help Minnesotans and focus on the local policies.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Well, because I think that, and actually we heard from, I'm not sure if this is the exact correct name of the sub caucus in the House, so I apologize if I'm getting it wrong, but the House Queer Caucus kind of has put the DFL on notice that they don't think that the federal DFL message or the state DFL message against Trump has been strong enough, and that they are perfectly happy to participate in slowing down and stopping state government in order to make their point. So I think Democrats are also kind of having to kind of patrol their moderate and progressive wing, because if you go too far one way, you're going to lose the Blue Dog Caucus. If you go too far the other way, you have the Queer Caucus. And if I'm Speaker Emeritus Hortman, that's not a really great position to be in.
No, but it's not a new dynamic, that's for sure. It's just a different dynamic when you're not in the majority role, and when you're in the minority, or in a, frankly, even worse, in a tied dynamic. Those factions can leverage their views more powerfully than they could have when you had a trifecta. But we struggle with our message. I mean, we've been talking about this since before the election. We struggle with our message. We struggle to be compelling. National Democratic leaders talking about Trump as like, we're going to use every tool in our toolbox, and then flipping their scarves at press conferences is not compelling. It is not working. So we have yet to coalesce around, I think, an effective way that makes people feel comfortable and confident that we can govern and lead and go into the future. But we haven't found it yet.
And I'm not going to say that the Doge and Elon Musk stuff is. I'm not going to say it's popular. Some of the polling is. Some of the stuff is popular and some of it isn't. I'm not going to say overall that it's popular, but I think it's not as unpopular as Democrats are treating it.
Because it's digestible. Because people can wrap their head around it. Because they might not like it, but they at least get it, and that's what we fail to do effectively.
And I always think there's this like, I like what you're doing, I don't like how you're doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Scalpel, not shotgun.
Yep.
I think it's okay for Democrats to just slow down and retreat and regroup and come up with a plan that's going to work and come up with some talking points. Right now, we've failed at that in the last 6 months, and the Republicans have won everything. They're in control of everything nationally. So let them run this and figure out how we can best attack them and what policies we can bring forward that the American people are going to get behind. Because with Elon and Donald Trump, they're going to make mistakes, and it's going to be easy for Democrats to be able to find a pathway.
You know, in losing is where you get most of the lessons.
Right.
Yes.
When
Always.
you win elections, you just assume that you were brilliant, you did everything right. It is sometimes the worst thing for a party to happen to a party. And frankly, is flipping scars, pearl clutching.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think like the Democrats have had so many cycles of success. The last 3 cycles, 18, 20. Oh.
Yeah, could you just
Turn the volume down a little bit.
Someone has asked Phil to turn down the sexiness in his voice because their girlfriend is watching. So.
Who is this? Is this Gabe pretending to have a girlfriend? Gabe, are you pretending to have a girlfriend? Oh.
How
Gabe.
dare you?
This is sad. This is super sad.
Anyway, Amy, you
Now
were
I'm
saying.
just sad. All right. Okay. Anyway, the point was, I think the last 3 cycles, Democrats have run away with it, and it largely in part because of Trump on the ballot, and I think in that you don't learn anything. When you win, you just assume, well, everything I did was brilliant, and every message I had was everything the American people wanted, and they stop listening. And so, yeah, this is a moment in loss is where you really should get the greatest opportunity, and where you should figure where you
And
need
on
to
the
figure
state
things out.
on the state level, Republicans have a very clear message. They're fighting waste, fraud, and abuse,
Right.
On the state, and that's something that's very hard for the Democrats to counter a message because so much of it has happened so very publicly that under their watch, that even though some of them didn't have like direct oversight, some of them did, and
Absolutely.
it's very hard for them to say, well, we're going to take this seriously now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Allison, you were saying something.
Oh, no, I feel like, it's Democrats have ran against Trump so many times, and then we kind of got shellacked this last round when it didn't work. We continue to fail to define what we're running for. And I know what we're running for. It's for working people and working families, and the cost of living your life, childcare, healthcare, food, making sure that you have enough rights as a worker. Like, we can be succinct in what we're pushing for, but we have a little too much infighting.
Yeah, we've lost rural America, rural Minnesota,
completely.
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 And at the end of the day, it doesn't take much to get those people back, because I come from there. I know what it is, and ultimately we want to have good education. Just like you said, we want to be able to ensure that we have good paying union jobs for the most part, and especially in northern Minnesota. We want to make sure that the programming out there, especially Social Security and Medicare, are protected, and we can protect our seniors. But the politicians right now in the Democratic Party aren't reaching out and sitting down with them, and they're not talking to the people in rural America. It's a problem with the party across the country.
Yeah, do you think it's just a dismissal because the population isn't there, and or is it disdain? Is it like, well, that's just poor?
I mean,
poor
I
white
have heard
folks and-
directly from elected officials who shall not be named at any level of government who have said, well, we'll win with the population. Like, there's a,
Right. They don't need 'em.
metro-specific population growth strategy. And that's...
Which is a strategy. I mean, and it has,
But it's not... you can't govern in the future. Like, what are you willing to lose?
Right. And at the end of the day, they also don't want their taxes raised. And the Democrats in the last, especially statewide, we did a lot of things to spend a lot of money. And they don't want
raised
that.
about $10 billion in taxes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and they don't want, and people in rural Minnesota don't want that. They have a simple life, and they don't want to have their taxes go up, and they want to have access to good law enforcement, which I think has also been kind of a battle where we've seen statewide.
Sure.
with
Well, you
some
had
of
to
things.
defund the
True or
police, right?
True or untrue,
Yep.
it was something that also helped
Yes.
rural Minnesota
Oh.
go towards the Republicans.
Well,
Absolutely.
in the same way that the Republican message to in previous cycles has sort of turned off certainly suburban women. I think that
Exactly.
Big time.
the ultra progressive men playing women's sports and stuff like that is just not going to play in greater Minnesota. And it's not that you can't win with only a metro strategy. You can. But having greater Minnesota be all red and having the metro area be all blue does not lead to good governing. And it's one of the reasons why finding compromise is so hard at the Minnesota State Capitol because there's not enough overlap.
Right.
The Democrats don't have to pay attention to Greater Minnesota because they barely have anybody in Greater Minnesota, and other than just a little bit in like the northwest parts of the state. I mean, Duluth, that's the big city. Rochester's the big city. Mankato, these are regional centers. They're not really Greater Minnesota in all the different ways that do matter. And when the Republicans win, they win with a largely rural and ex-urban majority, and then their messaging does not play that well in the suburbs, and doesn't play at all in Minneapolis and St. Paul, which is where a lot of people live.
It becomes us and them constantly.
And we're like on this razor thin margin.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Right,
it's 50-50.
So it's like,
Yep. So you've got even thinking about, depending on what happens in this special election, which, by the way, everybody's assuming it's Democrat, and I get that, but I just want to say, that's not the Democrat
The seat does not belong to anyone.
Is the people of Roseville seat.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of supposition and a lot of assumption there that I don't appreciate. I'm not an idiot. I know the numbers in that district, but I do think that that's a mistake. But even still, right? So we're just going to probably get to 67. Which means nobody's in charge of anything.
No.
And then
I think if we can reach out and still not forget about Greater Minnesota, I think there's an opportunity for Democrats. And I also think with some of the things that we're going to see with Trump and Elon and supporting billionaires and proving that, hey, this is the Democrat, the DFL, and we will support labor. We will protect your jobs. We will support you. We just had to make some changes in our philosophy as Democrats to win up in Greater Minnesota.
Yeah, and another thing that I think Democrats just have to stop doing is calling everybody a white supremacist. Everyone's a Nazi, and that's one of the things that really hurts them in Greater Minnesota as well. Is that if there is a position that certainly the progressive wing of the DFL opposes, it's because that's white supremacy. And then you're kind of telling some people who say, oh, you know what, I believe in that a little bit, or I think that makes sense. You're calling them names, you're calling them ignorant, you're calling them Nazis, and that doesn't play at all. And we had another more evidence of that, as and Amy, maybe you know a little bit more of the specifics of this than I do, but it was uncovered this week by a friend of the program, Jim Nash, who at least tweeted about it the most. Is that there are training materials that the state of Minnesota have, which label the Republican Party as white supremacists, and the original title of today's show was wrong about Christian hegemony. Or hegemony, which I had to look up. Hegemony, which I had to look up because I don't even know what that word means. But I had to look it up. But
which
now,
one, Christian or okay?
No. And now the commissioner of Minnesota Management and Budget, Erin Campbell, had to issue an apology to this, and I think that she's being brought before the House State Government Committee next week, and is going to have to answer to what some of these materials
say. This was official training that they were having all the state leadership state workers run through. That's called today's Republican Party, overtly racist, overtly white supremacist, and Christian hegemony.
Hegemony.
Yeah.
Who was it? Who was it? Said,
it's just
friend of the program, Mike Franklin, said, "Is that like the next stage of Pokemon?"
Right, a hegemon.
Jeez. That is
evolved.
To your point. Not and a friend was meeting with her. A friend of a friend, but with someone who is from Germany, and she was this woman was really frustrated by the amount of times Nazi is superficially used as a descriptor because there are actual white supremacist Nazis in government, in the German government right now, that our vice president is actually meeting with. And that just is not alarming because it is overused. We are painting with a broad brush. And I have myself done many racial reckoning, white supremacy trainings throughout my years in public service and in my personal life. But
you do them just for fun sometimes.
For fun, for learning and personal growth. But clear stopping at labeling a political party within the state of Minnesota as that in the government. I frankly can't agree with that assessment.
Well, and Alan said, you put us together, and we make half of a Jew.
We do
So,
enough.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so and I've said lots of times about my grandfather Egon Weitz, my mother's father Egon Weitz, was an Austrian Jew who came to America in 1938, which is right when you wanted to do that.
Yeah, good timing.
Yeah, and but he lost brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins and all of that. So when people are calling me or other people Nazis, that means something a little different to me. I get it. We all throw around words, commie and fascist and all these things. These things have definitions, and they mean what they mean, not what we want them to mean. And so I think that we need to come up with a different word. One, because we've taken all the power away from being called a Nazi, and that's dangerous because Nazis, that's the worst thing that has ever existed on our planet. I'm pretty confident to say that, and that it's not something that should be toyed with. And Nazis are Nazis. Call them something else.
Again, I think this is the far left and the far right extreme sides of the party's controlling narrative, and I mean we all know. I think the people in the middle know better, and I think things just get blown out of proportion. And I agreed, it's just not. It's not appropriate to be able to use those words.
Well, let's move on. So Senator Tina Smith, the aforementioned, said that what Elon Musk is doing with the Doge, where he is an email has been sent out, kind of, telling federal workers, prove that you're doing something, with 5 questions. And she said it's the ultimate Dick Boss move, was what she said. And I think another thing about this, I think that's funny and all that, but I think that's another thing that is missing the mark, because people have to prove what they do quite often. When I was a lawyer, I had to prove what I did every 6 minutes. And, at Momentum Advocacy, people check in with me, and yes, they're questioning the motives of this, but what is being asked of them? If you're not willing to say what you did, you don't, even if you're not telling Elon, I'm sorry, if you're not willing to, if that's too much, well then you're not appropriate for that job.
It depends on who's asking. You're my boss. I will check in with you. Elon is not. The Office of Personnel Management at the federal government doesn't really have this authority. And we've already seen what he's doing with this information. It's incredibly harmful. It's not skillful. It's not helpful. Thank you. A chainsaw. And he's eliminating incredibly critical roles. He doesn't have an understanding or appreciation for government and what it does and its role. And then you have Kash Patel saying, you guys, you don't have to answer that. If he wants to evaluate the workers within the FBI, that's his job, not Elon Musk's.
Well, and Phil and I talked about this before the air. I get that. I mean, yeah. I think that what he's doing, if it was being done differently, has a ton of value. There is obviously waste, fraud, and abuse, probably on scales that would make our heads spin, that he is going to uncover one way or the other. Do I want this to be with a scalpel? Yes. Do I want this to be with a shotgun? Hell no. Do I think it's being done with a shotgun? Yes. But I also think that some of the things that people are, what was your thing? Not clutching pearls.
Flipping a scarf.
They're flipping their scarves at. Some of that is, guess what? People can ask you to do that, and they are in the executive branch. So Elon Musk isn't their boss, but the president of the United States is.
Yes, who was elected.
Yeah, and then he said, Elon, go use a shotgun. And
so here's the deal.
Things.
I think that so many people, I wish they were just less messy about this.
Yeah.
That's what I wish, because what happened in this, I just want to point out, is not just Kash Patel that told his members, but the Justice Department, the FBI, the State Department, the Pentagon, the Department of Energy, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence all said disregard this order. Because, by the way, these are high-level, top
security positions.
secret security cleared personnel who should not be communicating with people that have not received any type of clearance in the face of Elon Musk and his folks that are looking into this. You cannot send what you are working on to these guys. They're not cleared. They don't have clearance. You put our national security at tremendous risk by even asking. And by the way, you look stupid for not knowing it. So while I fully appreciate using AI and being thoughtful and going after crazy, outrageous spending and waste and abuse that is at the federal government, of which I am certain there is lots, and of which I am certain there are federal employees that have never come back to their offices after COVID, who have not been responding to emails, who have second jobs. I promise you that I know corporate employees that have found employees that do jobs because the people just weren't bothering to come into work. Do I think they're out there? Yes, I do. But you have to be smart about this. You have to be real thoughtful about this. And this just looks dumb for you to ask the personnel in these organizations, these departments, to put into an email to people that have not been cleared what they've been doing. That is a terrible risk. And you look dumb. And so it's like there was another employee that was on NPR from Minnesota where he was at the SBA, I think, small business, and he was fired. And like a week later, he was like, "Oh nope, sorry, you're hired, you're back, come back." And then like a few days later, he was fired again. What are you doing?
Elon believes in second chances and maybe third chances if needed.
Can you remind me how many votes was Secretary Musk confirmed with in the Senate?
Enough. And hey, and let's not make Brian McDaniel the defender of Elon Musk, because I'm not. But I also think that I was in a committee today where a DFL state representative referred to the Trump-Musk administration. Ha 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 ha. But guess what? You lost. You don't get to decide who gets put in these positions because you lost. If you don't want someone like Elon Musk put in those positions, then run better campaigns. And Donald Trump, people on this, we had clients that were very surprised this week when they found out that I was not a Trump supporter, which means that they don't listen to this podcast. I am not.
Add that to the contract.
Yeah, no kidding. But I also will say that the American people made a choice. They made a choice, and it's one that those of us in the scarf flipping class don't like. But people out there in regular America are saying they want to see how this plays out, and they're not. They're not assuming that every single person that works for the federal government has this high clearance. The trust all of a sudden that we have in our federal institutions that we didn't have before this is just disingenuous.
I agree with you on that, Brian, but I think what this is going to do is what we were just talking about. I think Elon is going to drive middle America back to the Democrats.
And that might happen,
But you're right. Republicans won. They're in control. This is the way they're choosing to govern. I don't agree with it. I think Amy was spot on what she was saying, and they should take their time. It's not inappropriate to ask these questions if it's done in the right way.
Yeah.
And
you could have the American people eating out of the palm of your hands. This is what's frustrating for Republicans, also for Democrats. When it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse, Democrats have completely the wrong message. They're so busy defending and ignoring the fact that $650 million of state, federal, or taxpayer money went out the door illegally. They're not messaging it well. And in this case, Republicans, I want you to be able to accomplish really amazing things. And I think that there's the political will to get this done, and the American people would be behind you. But when you do things like this, it looks like Keystone Cops, and it actually hurts the cause more.
And I want you to find.
It looks like chaos.
Find a Republican president or a Democrat one who didn't celebrate being able to shrink government. They all say they're doing it.
Oh, of course.
But how this is being done with a shotgun obviously is not, as someone who has worked in government 25 years, this isn't how I would do it. This isn't how I want to do it. But I also worked in a department here in the state of Minnesota and kind of know what they're talking about. But it's comical, and I'm trying to obviously walk back the perceived support that I probably was evidencing, but also I think that people are saying, some people are saying, well, good, because they don't believe that the government works for them. They don't believe that the government is strategic and cost effective, and they do think that it's the swamp. Let's remember, that's how he won the first time. He was going to drain the swamp, and people we're fine with that. And now that he's come back and filled it back in with all his buddies, they're fine with that too. So I don't know.
And props to Senator Smith for jumping in on this and being a part of the news. And she's got her name out there.
Well, she
and
doesn't
she's
care.
on her way out.
She doesn't care. Also, she's not wrong.
Start the fight.
She's
right?
untethered
And
now.
Phil,
Call a spade a spade.
Yeah, Phil mentioned earlier, like Medicaid. Republicans are so a lot of things that they're doing affects red states as much as blue states.
More.
Absolutely, and some of it even more. But both state Republicans and federal Republicans certainly on they're giving the White House a very stern warning about cutting Medicaid, and Speaker Mike Johnson is also kind of letting them know they're not going to be able to do everything they want, which might mean we have Speaker Tom Emmer. I mean.
Well, he did pass the budget. So last night, a big hurdle was passed by 2 votes. And by the way, I think the Republicans only have
One
3
Republicans,
votes.
right? One Republican voted.
One Republican voted against from Kentucky against the big budget package, which so frankly, that was like a big heavy lift for Mike Johnson and a big win for him. But it does show sort of the tenuous nature of this budget deal, because that budget deal still needs to go through the Senate. There's going to be changes, and then on both sides again in the Republican Party, if you do too much one way, you lose the ultra conservatives. If you go too far the next way, you're going to lose some of your moderates who just don't believe that they can win their seat again without it. So there's a lot of work to be done, but the big hurdle was passed last night by passing
Will
it.
they all just fall in line if Trump tells them to, though?
No,
Not all.
No, not all.
No.
Depends on the deal. Like, I think some of them said, listen, he said there's going to be cuts, and Burchett said he's never lied to me, so I believe him.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Yeah. No.
United States voted with Russia, refusing to condemn Russia's role in the Ukraine war. So that's great.
Bunch of commies.
That part. I mean, I don't. That stuff bothers me.
It should bother.
Well,
you
it does
too.
bother me, and it's not that I'm saying people can't look at the war in Ukraine and say that's not an appropriate use of United States funds. Perfectly valid. I probably agree with you on a lot of that, but also I'm not going to look at Russia, led by a lunatic, and say, well, you know what? What I'm sure what they did here was above board. That's just not going to be what I do, and it's not because of we should follow the rest of the world. If I didn't feel this way, I wouldn't say it. But also, I think that the rest of the world is right on this, and that this was a big fumble on our part.
It's embarrassing, and I having been a person or still being a person that travels the world representing our country, and having to face other countries. We're really the laughing stock, and when types of things like this happen, and we have to prevent this. And this is just sad that we would be siding with Russia on this, and yeah.
And we got the mineral leases that we wanted, or whatever it was that we were negotiating from the Ukraine. But this is not the way to negotiate. You can't do this.
Yeah. So I have so many thoughts on this. We've talked about this. I'm a former Russian linguist. I worked at the NSA. This was my job to cover this area of the world. Putin was around at the time. He's former KGB. He is in no way trusted. He was the aggressor in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So there is no denying that, and he should not be supported. And we should be acknowledging that as a country, not because of the rest of Europe. Now, I will say this to our NATO allies: they want to be at the table. They have for the last 50 years slept under the blanket of freedom that America has provided.
Yep.
They do not contribute. Their minimum floor contribution is to have 2% of their gross domestic product go to their military. And until recently, only 1/3 of them was meeting the floor, by the way, the basic minimum. Now 2/3 of them do. 1/3 of them don't. So they can go pound sand, from my perspective, when it comes to like negotiating in Saudi Arabia. Look, I want Rubio at the table. I think Rubio understands and respects what the problem with Russia is. He comes from Cuba. He knows all too well what his family fled Cuba. And so we don't do this because it's about our European allies only, although we also have to work with our allies. However, our allies have not been very good allies, I would say. And they always want to sit at the table and they want to direct us and boss us around, and yet they don't put up or shut up. But with that also, Putin is not our friend. He's a bad, evil dude who messes with us at every turn, messes with our elections. You want to talk about people are so worried about stolen elections? You know who's moving in and a biggest threat to our free democracy and elections? Russia. Mm-hmm. Along with China also, but definitely Russia excels at this. This is what he does well. He was the aggressor in Ukraine. He would like to move further and further across the line, and not for good purposes, folks, or not because of just his history. He's a bad dude.
Yeah. Who hates Western democracy.
That's right.
Exactly.
I don't know where conservatives fell off on this.
It is mind-boggling to me, Amy. With your history, with my uncle was in the Navy during the Cold War, lived in Moscow for 4 years. His job literally was to sign off on dismantled nuclear plants across Russia. I have been raised to despise Russia because it is the antithesis of American democracy. And this mind bend to him being anything other than a propagandist dictator, I don't get it.
If you believe that our money should be spent in the United States, taking care of United States people, I get that.
Yep.
Sure.
I get that. But that's not what this was. This was saying that Russia was not the aggressor in the Ukraine, and that is just flat out bullshit.
Yeah.
They've been messing with their electrical grid for 20 years now, to tampering with Ukraine. They've been infiltrating their elections. Putin had his guy in office for years. They've removed, Russian dissenting voices in the Ukrainian government. I mean, it's
Show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
If
I don't like our friends right now.
I agree. And then I don't have a problem with the money, right? That people are concerned with. We're spending too much money in Ukraine, and we're the only ones stepping up. And I don't even mind unilateral talks with Putin. I was like, I get that folks don't love that, but guess what? Again, NATO, you get to be at the table when you're actually at the table. Mm-hmm. And I trust Marco Rubio to do that properly. But this vote was just wrong. It was just wrong.
All right. Well, let's go to plugs, Amy.
Oh, it's a quiet week this week. Brian and I are on the BS podcast every Tuesday. You can catch us with Bob Sansevier. Also, you can listen in on Friday mornings on WCCO Radio at 8:20 to the Capitol Clash with myself and Jeff Hayden. And that's my plugs this week.
Allie?
Oh, no, I'm actually the most normal person at this table.
Yeah.
Birthday fun.
Coach Phil?
Yeah, just a quick, I don't know if it's a plug.
That's like Alita's Olympic ring.
We did have our Olympic trials, so a shout out to Corey Dropkin and Corey TC, who won our Olympic trials over the last weekend. They went 11-1 throughout the weekend. They were pretty flawless, actually, and pretty great.
Well, except for that one.
The first game. And it was the first
game.
They lost the first game. Corey. Yeah, imagine. Yeah, they were 2023 world champions, so we are immediately going in as medal contenders to the world championships here in 2025.
Who's your biggest competition at the world?
Sweden won it last year, so they'll be tough for sure. And
No,
Sweden
get
and
those
Canada.
Swedes.
Yeah. Sweden and
Get
Canada.
those Scandinavians. USA. Good job,
good for them.
Coach.
I think the only other thing that I have is that if you're going to be in the greater Bismarck area on the 14th of March,
Who isn't?
Who won't be?
It's lovely that time of year.
Comedian Gabe Noah, perhaps you know of him. He's in the other room. Gabe Noah and I are going to be doing some comedy in Bismarck on the 14th, and I'm super excited about it. Wrote a bunch of new stuff. And I've been slowly torturing my friends and family with sliding in the conversation to see how it's playing.
The problem is you guys are a little ahead of the season, the Bismarck spring break season. That's when most people go to Bismarck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
University of Winnipeg, they come south.
No, if you're over 45 years old, that is the spring break.
Bismarck. Hey, I think didn't Dave Listegard and I talked about getting you up north and doing
Yeah,
a
that never
comedy show.
happened.
We've got to do that.
I saw Dave twice today. He was up at the Capitol. So
Okay, I'm going to text him. We got to get you up there.
It takes nothing to get me to go somewhere. Now that Gabe has made me a road comic.
Right.
All right, let's go to Spanks and Things. We're a little bit short on time, so let's try not to elongate them. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I want to quickly spank the Supreme Court, who ruled today, turning down a Biden-era rule that protects consumers from being spammed by marketing cold calls. The FCC released a rule a couple years ago, and that does not allow companies to just cold call spam you. They have to get written consent, or you have to sign up through some website. I mean, you still can get spammed, but not to the degree that they used to get spammed. Anyways, they said that the FCC exceeded its statutory authority. The Congress would need to pass a law, which sure, but that is super annoying for everybody. And my thank is very specific, very local. It's actually to all of the LAs and pages at the House who are working in the Centennial office building who have to ride down on the elevator every day. I was having a conversation with a member today, and it's a lot of work to literally escort hundreds of people up and down every day, and I just want to thank those young, I'm sure, underpaid individuals.
It's almost like you shouldn't have to do that. Phil?
My spanks is to the Minnesota Senate for failing to pass the bipartisan sports betting bill. It was a couple weeks ago. We just need to get this done, and this bill in particular had the buy-in from the tribes, the tracks, the charitable gambling. We at a time where we need tax dollars, this is something that we should all be able to get behind and just get it passed. It's legal in so many other states, and we just need to do it. So it's long overdue, and shame on the Senate for not even getting it out of committee.
There's still session left, so we're hopeful. But yeah, let's get that moving.
Yeah. And thanks for being here. Appreciate joining you guys. It's always fun. And then a special shout out to CNBC also for televising our Olympic trials over the weekend. It's always great to have curling on TV.
Giddy up.
I agree.
Giddy up.
It's always great to have curling on TV.
Amy Kay?
All right, so my spank, that has been long coming, is that there's talk now that the North Star commuter rail may finally be shut down and moved over to bus services. The North Star line, when I was first serving in the legislature, was when it was really cooking, it was something I could never support or vote for because I very much feared exactly what has happened. My fear was, I said, that I would be driving along the roads, coming from my district, by the way, past North Star commuter rail, and that would be empty as the roads were clogged up. And that has been the case for 10, 15 years, whenever this thing started popping up. It does not have the ridership. The ridership is too expensive. People were this commuter rail line was maybe way ahead of its time because the system was not built out, but it has been a real boondoggle, and so I guess it's a thank that it's leaving because it really people should have
Potentially.
Bipartisanly so too.
It's just.
I believe Chair Kosnick said, let's mothball this boondoggle in his opening remarks.
I mean...
It should have gone to St. Cloud, though. Sorry.
Could have listened to 2006, Amy. He said, this ain't going to work, folks. I'm sorry, it ain't going to work. All right, and then my thank goes to a college in the UK that's offering a course to teach Gen Zers how to make and accept phone calls. Apparently, and we all know this if you have a Gen Zer, and even millennials to some extent.
I couldn't take it back.
The phone anxiety you all have, just chill. Just chill. This is a great form of communication. I love texting. I get it. But honest to God, just pick up a phone
Just
every
make a
now and
phone
then.
call.
Pick up a phone.
Right.
You're so much more efficient.
Reach out and touch some.
The number of times there's I sent an email, I didn't hear back. Yeah, did you pick up the phone and call? Makes me insane. So, all right, I guess if we have to teach you, if we have to have some college courses to help you with your phone anxiety, you just spend hours and hours on Insta and TikTok and Snapchat. Just pick up the phone and call some people once in a while.
I'll call my athletes and
So
they'll go
thanks.
right to voicemail. And
Nottingham College.
They'll text you back, right?
Text you back.
Right.
Just come on now. Come on now. So thanks, Nottingham College, being ahead of the curve.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will be quick. Okay. So my spank is going to be to people who are targeting and vandalizing Tesla superchargers. There has been a wide swath of people spray painting over them Nazi symbols, and this is an Elon Musk thing. People think they're being funny. People think that they're being edgy. People think that they're making a point. Really, what they're being criminals. And as we said earlier, Nazis are Nazis. Tesla is not a Nazi organization. If you want to say that the Tesla Cybertrucks are stupid
So
looking,
you're the one responsible.
I'm the one.
Okay, I was like,
If you want to say that the Cybertrucks are stupid looking, yeah, you're right. They're super dumb
kind of
looking.
growing on me.
Really? Well, that's weird because they're terrible. But that's a different point to make. And who's driving them? I don't know if any of us like them. I don't know anyone.
They're kind of growing on her. Listen.
I'll say they're probably not Nazis, but they probably have their hats on backwards. And then my
They're not using the
They're
phone.
definitely
for sure.
really rich single dads, so
They're
they're
not-
growing on. They're growing on
Not
me.
using phones.
They're not using their phones for certain. Though.
No. And then my other spank is going to be Major League Baseball. There's something, sometimes cool things just happen on accident. And when the Philadelphia Phillies would play the Pittsburgh Pirates, there would be something very interesting that would come up on the screen because Philadelphia starts with what letter?
P.
P. Pittsburgh starts with what letter?
P.
And what happens when the score is 0-0? You would get the word poop. And that is something that brings people so much joy. And this year, because Philadelphia has changed how they're going to show their scores, we're no longer going to have the poop games, which make me sad. And anyone who says, "Oh, I can't believe it," if you've ever spelled out boobies on your calculator, this is the same amount of joy that you received then, which I'm sure was not just when you were a child.
Well, for some of us.
How do you do that?
And with
Ryan?
that, I can do that. Boobies, I can do hello. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do. Fun with calculators. Calculators for the Gen Zers were things that you used to have before you went on your phone.
Add that to the phone call
Yeah,
class.
put that on the phone call.
I mean, you have an app on your phone.
Yeah.
in a
Well,
robot.
Yeah.
Those of us of a certain age were told, well, you have to learn how to do this math because you're not always going to have a calculator with you. Well, joke's on you, Len Beerline. But with that, I am GOP strategist, and sorry that Pennsylvania's losing its poop. Brian McDaniel.
And just pick up the phone and call me. I'm Amy Koch.
And it's my birthday. I'm Allison Nessie.
And get out and try curling. I'm Phil Drobnik.
And
We
we
are
are wrong about
everything.
everything. It's hard to get ice time.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
is so hard
It
to
is.
get ice time.
I've always wanted to try it.
I know.
Let's get you out there.
Yeah, let's try that.